Good afternoon, investigators. It's Mike Evans from the Australian Security Academy. This week we're looking at drones and investigations, and we'll be looking at these things for quite a few weeks to come as far as drones as used by government, private and corporate investigators. So this one has a speaker on it. You can send it up to a couple of fishermen and say, "Show me your license and identification, please." And then the camera will have a look at that and take a photo of it and say, "Thank you very much," and fly away. So people, this week we are looking at fishing expeditions, drones, job vacancies, missing people, and a whole lot more. Let's start off with the missing person one. This is a real beauty. It only happened last Sunday afternoon at 3:15 p.m.
Dale Nicholson from New Norfolk, Tasmania, who had been missing since 2018, was found last Sunday deceased in his vehicle in the Derwent River at New Norfolk in Tasmania.
Adventures of Purpose is now a group of people throughout the world who just want to make a difference, want to make the world better. And, you know, we experienced that firsthand yesterday, hugging the family and spending time with them off camera, and it was a great experience. And
no, don't let him kid you. He kept pushing and kept pushing. He did not want to quit, and that's what it takes when trying to find these people. You can't quit. You got to keep moving forward, and when you least expect it, something comes on that sonar that gives you hope that you can bring these people home to their families.
And you've got so many good people out there supporting the channel.
Dale was suffering from depression at the time he went missing. He simply wound down the windows in his vehicle and just drove into the river. He was found less than 100 metres from where he lived, and the people that found him do this voluntarily. A lot of people come into this industry wanting to find missing persons. Here's an example from Monica Smith, who put on LinkedIn last week how she reunited a lady with her birth father. Opportunities in missing persons come from adoptions in particular. Australia's had a large adoption program with Korea over the years, and a lot of young mums at the time in difficulty gave up their children for adoption, and now many years later, after worrying for a long time, they actually seek local investigators in Australia to find and reunite them with their sons and daughters. It's a genuine method of income and work of a private investigator. It can be quite upsetting that the mums are very anxious in relation to reuniting with their children. An interpreter should be used in these circumstances, and you won't beat the advice that you got last week in our Investigations Uni program from Evan Frangos. What he said was, go and make yourself known to the local migrant resource centre, develop a bit of a relationship with them. You can join their association for $25 to $50 a year, and they have connections and cultural understandings, if ever you need it, for people in other countries, and they're only too happy to assist. They don't get a lot of government funding, but they're there to support a whole different lot of communities and cultures in various issues for people who are new to Australia.
So that was a really great outcome in a missing persons case from Dan Down Under. And you can look at his YouTube channel and see all about that. They found the missing person's body in his vehicle with the windows wound down. He did deliberately suicide. He just drove into the river. He knew the river. He was a fisherman, and he knew the river quite well. My pleasure, DJ. It was brilliant advice. He knew that river quite well, so he knew where to go. He knew where the deep holes are. Less than 400 metres to the left of that, it's all shallow, and you wouldn't be able to sink a car in it. It's just that's where the tidal part of the salt water met the fresh water coming out of the Derwent River. New Norfolk, the Derwent Valley, is known as the Valley of Love, and the deceased person who was found would have referred to it as that. I'm not making fun of him. It's just that's the way they talk up there. It's a beautiful spot. In fact, it was where I first ever started to do surveillance, and this is what it looked like when I was working there. This is a real estate photo, so ignore the red triangle, but that was my view. And I'm a trout fisherman, and I'd watch the trout fishermen while I was on surveillance. And every time they caught one, they'd laugh and yell. And it made me jealous because I'd be there working in beautiful time of year. That's what it looked like. And it was there where I thought, gee, there's got to be much more to it than this. And that's where I actually had the thought to start the Australian Security Academy as a registered training organisation all those years ago. So that's been running for 23 years, and it was about 6 years before that. So missing people investigations, they're part of what we do. A lot of people go missing. You can get on Facebook pages and you can see it. Here's one here. So during that presentation, you saw about Monica Smith, who said she was just so pleased that she reunited a lady with a birth father. Where have you heard of Monica before? Well, Monica's a trainer for the Australian Security Academy. She's there between Jim Higgins and myself. And there's Monica after doing a presentation at the Stanford Plaza at the Western in Melbourne on report writing. So that's Monica. She's now working at LKA and she's training manager there. Good on you, Monica. You're a great trainer. And I'd love to catch up with you again soon. So let's have a look at some of the jobs available this week. Inside Intelligence, looking for workers' compensation investigators in New South Wales. Great risk management opportunity with the #1 company in the world, Intelligent Risks. You watch the replay of this, you can just watch the replay tomorrow. Get all the details there and see Intelligent Risks in action. All these jobs are on our Facebook page featuring Monica, myself, Jim and David. And you can see these jobs on our Facebook page, Australian Private Investigator, Corporate and Government Investigation Jobs. You have to answer 2 questions to join it. Are you an Australian citizen? Are you looking for a job as a private investigator? If you answer yes to those, I'll give you free access to all these jobs and a whole lot more. IBAC looking for investigators in South Australia, New South Wales, Northern Territory, Tasmania, Victoria, so Queensland. So they're based in Melbourne, Victoria, but they're looking for investigators in other parts of the country because there are people in other parts of the country associated with investigations that they do. Compliance and Investigations Manager at Brisbane City Council. That's happening right at the moment. This week, people, at the Australian Security Academy, we've been having James Bond Week, where we put up some James Bond photos on some of our Facebook pages and have a little bit of fun with it. So what we did, the one we had today, who was it? No, I like that one. That's a behind the scenes one. Donald Pleasance with the cat and James Bond mucking around behind the scenes. This one today from Moonraker, where the gentleman Drax told his assistant to look after Mr. Bond and make sure that some harm comes to him. So that was what we had today. This comes back to one of the main themes of our program today. We're looking at fishing expeditions. We're also looking at our movie of the week. We've had it before. And this is a fishing expedition in our movie of the week, Day of the Jackal. The detective in charge of the investigation to find the assassin who's trying to kill Charles de Gaulle was in a meeting with Parliament and all the ministers are present. And he's just told them that he tapped a phone to find out which minister was leaking information. And the meeting's all over and whatever. And one of the ministers said, there's one thing, how did you know whose telephone to tap? His answer was, I didn't, so I tapped them all, which really shook all the ministers up. So you can do that if you're a police officer. They do, or they have warrants for it. But if a bomb's ticking or a child has been kidnapped, there are absolutely no rules. So that's an example of it. Someone's trying to kill the Prime Minister, Charles de Gaulle of France. It's a bomb ticking situation and they want to identify who that is. So he tapped all the telephones to find who was leaking the information. Now, we can't do that as government, corporate or private investigators. You can't go on an all-out fishing expedition. You're not allowed to do it. It's absolutely, totally illegal. The fishing expedition is when you have no evidence, you have no facts, you have no idea of what's going on, and you start fishing around to try and confirm your theory. You cannot do it. It's a sign of weakness in your investigation and slackness in your attitude, and it's going to shorten your career and end it very quickly if you go and take off on what's known as a fishing expedition. You're basically trying to trap someone. That's what you're doing. And you're trying to trap them by ambushing them with demands and threats. And those threats are trying to indicate, hey, Tony, good to see you, buddy. Hope things are well in South Australia. They're trying to indicate that you have evidence and you want more, and you're threatening them. So let's have a look at the video on fishing expeditions and why you can't do it.
Investigator Herbert knows David did it, but Herb has no evidence in that regard, so he issues an email to Davo demanding all documents on his computer in relation to the investigation. Herb has no evidence, he has no proof, he has no facts, he only has a hunch. What Herbie is doing is going on an illegal fishing expedition. This is banned in civil investigation in Queensland by the Supreme Court. It's banned all around Australia, and it's a police tactic to get confessions. A fishing expedition refers to someone overly investigating or demanding information from an individual or organisation. In law, the term is most used to describe during the discovery process of a lawsuit. So that's when it's used. Fishing expedition that does not stick to a stated objective but hopes to uncover incriminating or newsworthy headline type evidence. So they're trying to find out information that they haven't got by demanding a lot of information. The court looks at the relevance of the documents that are being demanded to the proceedings, that the exercise is a fishing expedition, and that the request was oppressive. Like they want thousands of irrelevant documents going back 30 years, and they're non-specific in what they want. Police-style fishing expeditions in civil investigation or dispute cases are not legal. Any documents requested must have a relevant and transparent purpose. Simply casting a wide net and hoping to grab whatever you can that's incriminating, embarrassing, or detrimental to the case of the other side in civil investigations is simply not allowed, nor is it accepted by courts. Police-style fishing expeditions in civil investigation or dispute cases apply to all insurance investigations, workplace code of conduct investigations, civil dispute investigations, any investigation where discovery or e-discovery may be required or sought after, divorces, all that sort of thing. You can't do a fishing expedition in any of those matters. Discovery is the process by which parties disclose to the other parties details of relevant documents and provide each party with access to all relevant documents before a trial. The aim of discovery is to avoid either party being surprised or ambushed to save costs and to encourage settlement. Now, this happens in civil matters for insurance investigation, civil disputes between corporations. It happens all the time, the discovery process. It's required. Policy, process and procedure apply to everything in 2023. You do not speak for nor provide anything to anyone on behalf of any client in civil investigations. That's insurance companies or government departments. You'll see out there in the headlines that fishing expeditions are not allowed, and there's lots of cases in the newspaper where they've been caught out with it. There must be a basis beyond mere speculation for further documents to be discovered. This one's been going on for ages. It's Sean Buckley with his secret recording case against his ex-girlfriend Jennifer Cruz Cole, and he's been accused of going on an impermissible fishing expedition in that matter. As an investigator or loss adjuster, if you're approached by any ex-police officer or lawyer demanding everything and or a full and complete explanation of vague detail and ambiguous parameters, make notes, take screenshots, do not reply, do not cooperate. They want to set you up and impress their client by controlling you. Do not provide anything. Tell your employer immediately or your client. Do not assist a corrupt ex-cop on a fishing expedition with supply of any form of information, documents, recordings, measurements, photographs, existence or denial of existence. If they want pre-trial discovery, they can transparently follow the correct legal process to obtain what they require.
They certainly can. And g'day, Chris and Chantel. Great to see you. Happy New Year to you both. Thanks for tuning in and watching. And your support from last year and this year has been absolutely inspirational to me. So that's great. So people, fishing expeditions not allowed. The court will not permit parties issuing a notice of abuse or subpoena to embark on a fishing expedition in the hope of locating a document to assist their case. In Jones versus the State of Queensland Police, they're talking there about a fishing expedition. It's well known and it's well documented. It's always been the case in insurance investigations. You can't do it. The Hayne inquiry of 2019 has basically emphasised that you can't do that. So I don't care who's instructing you. If they tell you to go on a fishing expedition, you tell them to do your own dirty work. You don't have to do it. The important thing about discovery as an investigator is you must fully understand what John O'Byrne, one of the great investigators of the Australian Security Academy, said way back in 2001. Accountability is what it's all about. You're the investigator. You collect the evidence. You present all of it, even if it's not good for your client. You're expected to know the guidelines and legislation. And this is the cruncher for fishing expeditions. Be prepared to accept that any documents, any statement, any comment you make will be tested before a tribunal and or court. Someone's liberty or quality of life may be at stake. It's your responsibility to ensure compliance. So someone's employment may be at stake. Their liberty, they could go to jail, right? Their reputation could be ruined because you cooperated with the fishing expedition or you followed someone's advice to go on one. It destroys whole organisations when it happens. So coming back to it, if a bomb's ticking or a child's being kidnapped, there are no rules in regards to that sort of thing. So let's forget about that in those situations. But in the course of normal civil investigation work, for you to be accountable and remain compliant, you don't go on threatening fishing expeditions. This happened on the Gold Coast this week. This lady, Angela Rose, took $250,000 from Medicare over various employers, and she basically was making 10 grand a week getting jobs in Medicare, accessing people's details and putting the money into her own account. Her name is Angela Rose. She used to be known as Angela Rose Cannon. Her dad, Cannon, was a bikie, or still is a bikie, and she's been found guilty, sentenced to 4 years for this. There's all sorts of dramas on the Gold Coast over this one at the moment. People didn't do their background checks, didn't do their checking before they employed that person. So coming into the guy that did do the fishing expedition by tapping all the phones, let's have a look at our movie of the week that's really relevant to fishing expeditions. If you haven't seen this one, you've got to watch the 1971 version. It really is private investigators, how to do it, undercover operations, investigating, that sort of thing. A really good movie.
Investigator Herbert knows David did.
Wrong movie. This one.
Made in 1972, this movie, The Day of the Jackal, is an intriguing thriller about the attempted assassination of President de Gaulle of France and how the spy is hired to undertake that project. It's really good scenes throughout this movie, including parts where he negotiates the price, parts where moles are found within the Secret Service in France and how they do it. It's really interesting. There's some light moments of humour in there, but it really is edge of the seat stuff as the assassin moves towards his target, President de Gaulle, crossing through borders throughout Europe. They're chasing him. He knows they're after him. And he's one step ahead of them all the way with how he disguises himself, how he smuggles his weapon across the border. This is really great undercover work stuff. So if you enjoy a spy thriller, don't miss Day of the Jackal. Every scene in this movie is relevant to the work of a private, government or corporate investigator.
how they disguise themselves, how they stay ahead of the people that are after them, how they smuggle things. This is really interesting stuff. This is the first movie in the ones that we've reviewed where every scene in the movie is relevant. The other movies we've reviewed, yes, they've had some great scenes and some good ideas, but one part here, one part there. This movie, all the way through it, there's something of interest to an investigator that you can see done cinematically in fiction, but with well-researched and relevant work. So if you've got a spare time this winter, a couple of hours in an afternoon on a Saturday when it's rainy or a Sunday, don't miss Day of the Jackal. Yes, it is 48 years old, but it is an intriguing movie and it'll have you on the edge of the seat with a twist at the end that's unbelievable, but very enjoyable. Made in...
I'm coming back. So that's a case where a bomb's ticking, child's being kidnapped. You could go on kick doors and bust heads, not just a fishing expedition in relation to that. That's what police are expected to do at that level. Fraud investigators required at Suncorp Metway. We need licensed PIs at ProCare, NHN, vendor management. Done that 2 weeks ago to vendor. They're looking for people at vendor management. Michelle, get on to vendor management. They want to talk to you. WorkSafe Victoria, they want to pay you $130,000 to be a compensation team leader. In the Department of Justice in Victoria, they want to pay you $235,000 plus superannuation every year to be a principal investigator at the DOJ. So what a great opportunity. Got to shift in. I'm running out of time. I've only got 10 minutes left, so I've got to go real fast now. We're going to be looking also today, as I promised, at drones. So, do private invest. You can't see that because it's green. It's got a camo pattern on it, and I've got a green screen on. So we'll go this way, which is green also. I better get my other one. Anyway, private investigators, government investigators, and corporate investigators all use drones. They do. My word, they do. So how do they use them and what do they use them for? Well, let's go and have a look at a dramatic representation of it. So here at Atwood Marshall, what they're saying in the headlines on their website is, where is the privacy? Injured claimants are subjected to surveillance by drones. Insurance companies are now on the privacy reputation bandwagon, retaining companies that use drones to follow around injured claimants, often in the comfort of their own backyards. Aha! That's what they do. All right, so this is what Atwood Marshall are saying on their website. And it's a big drama and a big carry-on, and they're saying that if you get injured at work, even with a psychological injury, they're saying that investigators are going to come and do surveillance on you using drones. And they go right into it on their website. So you can go to their website and you can see it. Jeremy Roche is there, and all this privacy is decreasing, and all these investigators and insurance companies are going into people's houses practically. This is what he's saying, and filming people who are injured and have made claims. They suffer from anxiety, he's saying, and psychiatric conditions, and the use of these drones is unsettling on the people. It's just, you can't do it, he's saying. You know, if someone's in the shower, you can't put a drone on them. And the people are getting very upset by the use of these drones. And here's a lady in the bath, an investigator who's actually watching her on a drone. And here's two people about to go into the shower being watched by a drone. Hey, this is a family program. That's enough of that. Sorry about that, people. That was for the cheaper people who are cheaper subscribers to this program. That will do. That will give us a picture there. All right, so what do they actually do it for? I don't know, Atwood Marshall, because I'm a licensed private investigator. I do workers' compensation investigations. I own 9 drones. And I've never used one in a workers' compensation investigation to film a claimant, ever. And I've had drones since 2011. And I've never used one for a workers' compensation investigation, but I use them extensively. So how do they do it? So here's some of the things that they use drones for. They identify criminal gangs, mafia, that sort of thing, who dump toxic waste. And the drones fly over these things. They use ground penetrating radar and they identify where the toxic waste has been dumped. Once they find that out, they can link that toxic waste back to the workplace and go and find the workplace and find them and report them to the EPA. And the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, use these things too. Private investigators like myself extensively use drones to identify stolen boats, stolen trucks, stolen vehicles, stolen motorbikes, stolen machinery and bulldozers and graders and parts of those things that are hidden on rural properties. You can't drive up the driveway and go looking for them, but you can certainly use a drone to see where a big D9 bulldozer has been collected. Here's another rural property that could hide such things. These are just taken off the web. They're not from a real operation. But when they're hidden, the stolen property is hidden in these areas. They're not always in sheds. Sometimes they're moving them around. And you can use your drone to identify the vehicle that's missing or been stolen. Toxic waste is a real issue for government departments, in particular the EPA, because people get asbestos and they dump it in the wrong places. And what they do is they follow the trucks leaving the demolition site. They follow them to where the stuff's being dumped in a quarry somewhere illegally, and they can land the drone after filming these people with their dash cam, and they can land the drone on top of that toxic waste and take a sample of it. The drone can even measure the cubic meterage that was dumped out of the truck onto that quarry area. Now, they can't stop a drone going in there because they don't see it happening and they can't hear it with all the bulldozers and trucks going on, but it can take a sample of the waste, which is a pretty incredible thing to be able to do. And then the Environmental Protection Agency can go and charge the waste people and the demolition people and the builders or whoever with dumping toxic waste, including asbestos. You're watching episode 192 of Spy Curious, the most informative private investigation program about missing persons, drones and fishing expeditions on Friday afternoons on the web. So anyway, we use drones as investigators all the time, but I have never met another investigator ever in the known, 13 years of the use of drones who's ever used one to follow a subject in a workers' compensation case. So I reckon Atwood Marshall are just being dramatic and basically on a fishing expedition for claimants who think they're being followed by drones. So that way they get some legal representation on no win, no pay basis, and everybody gets a client, everybody's happy. But I have never received an instruction from a client to follow an individual with a drone, which is, I can't imagine how I'd do it. I'd have to be James Bond to do that. And I'm not James Bond, it's just a drone. Okay, so we'll leave that to the experts. But this is getting badder. Don't forget, people, these are the people in New South Wales who have won the iCare contract in New South Wales, and they're looking for licensed investigators. So there's a big list of them there. If I take it down too quickly, you can watch the replay tomorrow and see who they are. Jump on our Facebook page and see the job vacancies that are there to help you identify what job vacancies for government, corporate and private investigators are available today. Thank you for your comments, everyone. I really appreciate you commenting through it. Really encourages me. Today we've looked at missing persons, $250,000 fraud that was going at 10 grand a week. We've looked at going on fishing expeditions and particularly why you shouldn't. It's your accountability that's at stake. If those people want to go on fishing expeditions, that's their problem. As an organisation, never ever do it. That's my pleasure, Craig. I hope you enjoyed it, mate. There's a couple of good ones today. Hope you enjoyed it, Chris. Chantel and DJ and Tony and everybody else that's watching. We'll be back next week. We're going to look again next week. We're going to look more at other things that they use drones for. There's a lot of stuff. I haven't even started on it. They were just some short examples. We'll get into more later on as we go over the next couple of weeks. But that's an introduction into drones. In particular, we'll be looking at how they use them in these things. That's something for next week, something to look forward to. I'm Mike Evans from the Australian Security Academy. My 30 minutes is up.
작전 종료. 전원 복귀할 것.
So, see you next week, people. You have been watching episode 192 of Spy Curious. We enjoy bringing it to you every Friday. We'll see you next week, and thanks for watching. Give the YouTube channel a like if you enjoyed it, and I'll see you then.